Okay, I'm going to call to order the Community Design Review Board meeting of Maplewood, Tuesday, February 19th, 2019, 6 o'clock p.m. Next will be roll call. We have everyone here except for Jason Lamers. So we have a quorum. And Jason, if you're watching, sorry, I always call you Mr. Lammers. But anyway, next is the approval of the agenda. Staff, is there any corrections or additions, et cetera?
Staff has no additions to the agenda as
Okay.
presented.
Any other discussion on that from us?
I would make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Minutes from January 19th, 2019. Staff, anything?
Staff has no changes to the minutes.
Okay. Anything from us?
No?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 15th.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. We move on to the next thing is design review, new business, the 5A, comprehensive sign plan, Maple Pond Home Apartments, 1854 BB Road North. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So Jane Adati will be presenting this for us tonight. She's just getting her presentation downloaded. And I am here as your guest speaker. So thanks for having me.
You're
Welcome,
welcome. It's
Jane.
always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Take it away, Jane.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Board. This evening we have a representative from Imaginality Designs requesting of you comprehensive
Pardon me,
sign
Jane,
plan.
is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I will take this again. We have a comprehensive sign plan request from Imaginality Designs for 1854 BB Road North, which is the Maple Pond apartment home. So Chair and Board, this is an overview map of the property. It's a 12-acre site, which is zoned as a planned unit development. It was, and that's the area with the red outline around. It was approved as a PUD in 1986, and it's also designated as a high-density residential. Tonight, Minor from Imaginality Designs is requesting of you a comprehensive sign plan that would allow them to put in a monument sign that is 45 square feet and would also allow them to have a couple of directional signs that are bigger than what is allowed according to the code. So, like I mentioned earlier, the site was approved as a PUD in 1986. It has not had a comprehensive sign plan since. According to a city code, all development that are approved as a planned unit development or areas that are larger than 10 acres are required to have comprehensive sign plans, but the property has not had one since, and staff has regulated the site as based on the use, which is residential, and so that allows them to get a 32 square foot monument sign. Staff received an application from Imaginality Designs wanting a sign that is bigger than that, and staff felt that this is a great opportunity to put in place a comprehensive sign plan for the property since they meet all the requirements of having a comprehensive sign plan. So this is a design. This is how the sign would look like. It's a 45 square foot sign that is combines two colors, white and then brown. It has the name of the apartment written in individual letters, Maple Pond Homes. Staff went to the site. The sign matches the colors of the building and it's attractively designed, and so staff is recommending that the board approves this comprehensive sign plan that would allow the applicant to put in a sign that is bigger than what would typically be allowed per the zoning. And so staff, based on that, staff is asking the board or recommending to the board to approve a comprehensive sign plan that would allow them to have a monument sign that would not exceed 45 square feet along BB Road. They would also maintain the 10 feet minimum setback that we require of all freestanding signs. Also, they would have one wall sign that would not exceed 20 square feet, 24 square feet, and then directional signs. Typically, the city code allows directional signs that are 6 feet in height and 6 square feet, but this comprehensive sign plan would allow them to have directional signs that do not exceed 14 square feet and would be 6 feet in height. All signs, with the exception of directional signs that meets the size and height restriction, shall also would require permits from the city, and so the comprehensive sign plan will now be a final decision. It will be a final decision by the board, but then staff will still have to review all permits before they are approved. We're also asking that staff approve minor changes that come up as and when they become necessary. With this, the applicant is here, can address the concerns of the board. Staff can also stand for any questions that you have. Thank you.
Okay. Any comments for staff?
Question, it doesn't say in the recommendation, I think the documentation that we have shows one directional sign. Should we identify that in the recommendation and as a condition, the number of signs? You've got some detail on the directional sign, but I'm just wondering, do we know if they show one, do they want to do more, or what should we do there?
Chair and board, I'm looking at the very first page of the report, and it says directional signs not exceeding 14 square feet and 6 feet in height are allowed, and so there's not a restriction on the number.
Okay, is that appropriate, or, I mean, we let them put up 10 directional signs, or should we limit it in any way, or? I guess I'm just throwing that out there.
Chair, I believe that's open to the board. Can definitely put in.
Okay. Well, I think we'll see what the applicant is intending and maybe work from there. So,
Okay.
also, I had a question about landscaping at the base of the sign. The graphic where the design detail shows some nice landscaping there. And I note that the photo shows some landscaping. Of course, it's all buried now with the snow, but do you have a feeling about, does staff have a feeling about the adequacy of the existing landscaping around the base of the sign and the need for additional, something to supplement it? It's hard to say.
Chair, board, we can put in a recommendation to require the applicant to modify or to enhance the landscaping.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's necessarily needed. I'm just wondering if it's been assessed as to if it's adequate, or, I mean, I see there's some shrubs and I think there's some trees around it as well. Again, maybe the applicant can shed some light on that too.
Okay. Maybe the applicant could come forward. And please state your name for the record and your address, and then also please sign in.
I will sign in a moment. My name is Myrna Ornstein.
Okay?
I am the owner of Imaginality Designs. Our business address is 6182 Olson Memorial Highway in Golden Valley, 55422. So, if you would like me to address the first,
Yes, if you
most
would.
recent question of
Yeah,
the
thank you.
landscaping. So there was landscaping at the base of the sign for the sign that we removed. There will be new landscaping going in. Just because of winter, we had to get rid of some of those shrubs, and to us, it's in planning signage and entries, it's essential that landscaping does go around the base of the sign. And that's also part of the reason why the base of the sign gets a certain height, because the landscaping is anticipated to be able to grow to a foot to 2 feet in that surround. So yes, there will be landscaping. Yes, there was landscaping. And again, the height of where the sign begins is intentional so that there's room from the base of the sign to the actual sign message, that we don't cover up any message with landscaping.
Right.
Okay, I have a question for staff. Do we require landscaping underneath the sign? Is that part of our ordinance?
Chair Board, we don't require landscaping.
We don't?
We don't.
Okay,
I'll say it's very common to do so.
well, oh yeah, I know, but, so, I think it's just a bonus that you're willing to do that.
It's part of creating the best entry.
Yep, so,
I guess I'm just looking to see if there was any other comment, if you're ready for any other comments that I might make in clarifications of
okay.
the
we have
proposed
a-
comprehensive.
Mr. Chair, Murdoch, I notice in the documents we have that the sign was installed prior to getting the permit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you answer that? How do you address that?
How do we address that is that we had planned the sign to be within the city code, and we had probably, we were working back and forth with staff for well over a month on that period of time, and we were encroaching the time in which our client needed to have our commitment to have the sign installed. And as we understood our sign, according to your rules, is that instead of the 32 square feet of sign message area per your code, we had actually designed a sign that had about 17 square feet of sign message area. So to us, there was no sense that there was going to be a rejection of the sign area. So we proceeded with the structure, because we had actually done the previous sign as well. In our minds and our understanding that we had actually met every bit of the code, and we purposely designed it to the code, not to exceed the code. So
Mr.
that's
Chair.
where we end up here today as the resolve to be able, we couldn't seem to come to a resolve of the calculation of the sign area face. And we've illustrated it within our documentation. In addition, I mean, if you put the two signs side by side, the sign message area and the graphic that represented the Maple Pond homes was at about, it's a little less than 32 square feet, because it had a whole graphic with a full color pond, so that would have been considered anything in the sign message area if you draw a box around it. In this case, we had a detached face, just like the other one had a detached face. And as you can see in the drawing, it's about, well, I gotta put my glasses on, about 18 inches by 7'10". So when we did our calculations, we just didn't have any doubt that we could be able to proceed, beat their deadlines. And we had anticipated and called the city before and had our permit in. So that's where it ran into the issue of.
Mr. Chair,
being
just to follow up, Jane, is that consistent with, is this from a staff perspective, your interpretation of what happened?
Chair Board, we had back and forth with the applicant concerning how the size of the sign was calculated. The applicant actually calculated the sign to include just the, and I don't have it here, but in your staff report, when you take a look at the page that has the attachment 2 that has the sign, they calculated it to be just the area where the individual letters are with the upper portion of the sign, which is the white area. But staff calculates the sign face to include the entire face of the sign. And so that was kind of what we had the back and forth about. We tried to help the applicant to either reduce the sign, apply for a comprehensive sign plan because they qualify, or deny staff decision. They went ahead to deny the decision to city council, but it was not approved by the city council, so.
Okay. Did somebody want to talk about, did you want to ask about directional signs?
I sure did.
Please do.
How many?
So we have, our original request was, there's two driveways into the property. One is a driveway on the north side, which is where the monument's located, which then takes you directly towards the office going in. And so on the inner side of the property, we actually have a directional sign that replaced the previous directional sign. Again, there's no permit needed for that. It was in the small square footage. Originally, we had wanted to have one that was on the south entrance. And because we were allowed one monument and how the directional sign is, we ended up choosing not to at this time apply for the directional sign that would be up against the road. So again, what we chose to do was have a directional sign that's inside the property, that once you come into that the south driveway, you have a choice to go to the left to the office in the 1854 building or to the right to the 1816 building. It would be nice to be able to have the opportunity for any future planning, since this is the comprehensive plan.
Right.
That will last, and there hadn't been one before, to be able to have, the directional would give the provision, because we wouldn't need a second monument. The directional would allow us to address the people going north on Beebe Road could go ahead to the main entrance and take a right into the property for the 1816 building. So at this time, we don't propose to do that directional that's up to the road. But it's an appropriate and I think a good thing to be able to have that opportunity in the future.
So one planned and potentially one more?
So we have two directionals that are inside the property.
Okay.
Actually, there's three, because there's one inside the property in the drive when you would have to make the choice to which building you would go to. There's one from the main north entrance that, again, tells you that the office is one way with
Okay.
the thing, and the other. And then once you get up to the entrance of the building for 1854, we again have to direct them to the office, because the office faces north and it doesn't have the direct visibility for the person who'd be driving, and what
Okay.
would happen is they'd go to the wrong entrance.
Okay.
I had a couple other questions.
I
when
think
you're
it sounds
ready.
pretty reasonable, your plan for directional signs. I'm just looking at the aerial of this. It doesn't look like there's going to be much call for very many directional signs, unless you just go absolutely nuts and say, look to your left, there's a pond.
The only directional sign that we would
Yeah.
have anticipated to be of value at any other point would be one from that south entrance to get somebody to the main entrance or into that entrance, instead of having to go drive around the property to get back in.
Okay.
So quantity doesn't seem to be limited, size is fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
What is ACM panel?
ACM is a metal composite, which is used most frequently in a lot of the new construction, where it's got aluminum on each side of the core with a PVC or another type of a core. So it's usually used in a lot of building cladding.
You're taking it down to ground. Usually, we have a brick base or a concrete block base to take abuse. How thick are these panels?
Quarter inch. They are, again, typically used in construction and wall cladding.
Yeah, I've seen
And
them
it-
used above some kind of a masonry base.
But there's no specification in the code for the type of material that the base needs to be.
I understand. You have a corner condition, so do you have two panels come together in a corner? What is the detail, right?
So we have an aluminum frame construction that that is built out of angle, which it goes around the base of the sign, goes up on the corners. There's additional aluminum angle that goes in from the end, so that there's actual structure in there, and it's not like the 8-foot base is not having the structure behind it, and then the individual panels are attached to the framework, and there's also sides. So it's a complete wrap on the side, and the bottom pieces are put on separately as well as then the top pieces put on.
So the face panel is one long piece, 8 feet long? Or will they be joints?
The face panel on the
Bottom.
sign structure
Yeah.
is all, there's the 2 horizontal panels that basically put those together, plus the sides and the top. So again, and it's all supported inside with aluminum structure, and it's mounted on the steel posts that were in the ground previously from the previous structure. The previous structure was a foam structure with an ephes material
Okay.
sprayed on. And then this also has additional structure to hold the sign message area. So there's an aluminum framing that goes around the perimeter to give support, and we've had additional material of thickness to make sure that the Maple Pond letters weren't flimsy. I mean, so that they were solid.
Okay. Any other comments? Sandra? Would somebody care to make a motion?
Well, I would like to consider limiting the number of directional signs. Is there any appetite for that, or,
I don't see a need myself, but
perhaps not then? I guess,
I'm just me, so.
yeah. I don't know what other board members think, but,
I think the site property is large enough, so I'm okay with the 3 signs.
Matt, my interpretation is if there's any additional signage that staff would be able to
well, no,
review that?
I don't believe so, because they've got their guidelines. They could put up half a dozen signs if they
Staff may
want.
approve minor changes.
Well, no.
That's kinda what I took
As it
too.
relates to directional signs, there's no, it's a plural, and there's no limitation as to the number of signs, so it just talks about the size of it. And
Yes.
So there's a couple items that I would like to have some clarification, again, how it impacts the future. And in this plan, there's the standard sign allowance for a 1 wall sign of 24 square feet. And so there's 2 buildings. So I guess my question is clarification of whether, in this particular instance, given that we are going for the comprehensive sign plan, that we could either enlarge that square footage for the main building. The distance of the actual walls, areas that you could put a sign on, they're not abutting or close to the street, so the visibility, what would happen if you're 24 square feet, the possible letter size may not be readable to put in the words Maple Pond Homes at a size, given the distance, for effective readability, given the speed of traffic. And again, it's inside the property, so typically, wall signs are something that actually are facing the street. So I guess I'd like to have clarification of if at some point that could either be, there could be a square footage amount that could be cumulative if we needed to put a name on the building for 1816 for the address, if we could include community center, because that's the building that actually has the community center, or if we could put a logo on the large wall. If we did it, we'd want to make sure that it was compliant with some visibility requirements as opposed to too small.
Okay. Staff, do you have any comment about that?
Tim, Bod, we got an email yesterday about wanting to increase the size of the wall sign to 48 from the applicant. we believe we actually build a comprehensive sign plan off of what is actually allowed, bearing in mind that this is a residential area, and so we want to keep signage on limited to an extent so that we are not allowing such huge signs in the area. We feel like staff feels a 48 square foot wall sign is pretty big. We haven't had the opportunity to really, like I said, we just got emailed about it yesterday, and so we told the applicant that this can be something they could put before the board if the board feels comfortable. So this is, staff cannot recommend the approval of much bigger sign than what we have put down in the comprehensive sign plan, but the board is pretty much open to allowing if they feel comfortable with it.
Are they asking for 48 square feet on building 1 and 48 square feet on building 2?
They had emailed me about just 148 square foot, increasing the size of it to 48 square foot.
That 48 square foot could be divided up between the buildings. I mean, if we had a 10 square foot name on one building and we had something, we did not plan something, and we could surely work with staff to say, if there was a future sign, here's the size and scale of the wall and the distance of the wall to the opening, to the entrance, so what kind of size letters might you need?
Okay, Matt, you had a comment?
Well, I guess, we can talk about the hypotheticals. When it comes to that, bring it back to us. We modify sign plans all the time. We're reasonable about that. That's why it's a comprehensive sign plan, to give you the flexibility, have a PUD, this kind of scenario. So it's hard to talk about the hypothetical
And-
right now, but we're open to discussion on those things.
And that's great, just because when we came in for the comprehensive sign plan, it was to be able to have the city approve the sign. That, again, we believe we are in less square footage, which goes to the next questions, because we never had any concerns about the sign code not being adequate for us to properly sign the property. There are some unusual parts that if there was a wall sign, it's way back, so it would have
Right.
to be readable.
Right,
And then,
understood.
so let's say that may be something that could be amended in a future aspect. The next question I really have goes back to the calculation of the monument sign and how it reads, because I think it could also be a future pitfall on how we're reading the code. So if we're looking at a sign that is described as a 45 square foot sign, it's really no different than the whole sign area that the existing sign was. And I have sort of a comparison for that. So if the code describes a sign message area is what is defining the square footage, there is not a definition for, if you have a monument sign, you could have a 60-foot monument sign and still have a 32 square foot sign message. Where this became the question is the definition of base. So because we could not agree on the definition of base, where the sign code just states that a base that's an architectural structure that has to be part of a monument is at least half as wide as the sign message. So the reason we're here today is we couldn't come to an agreement on how to draw a box around what the sign message area. And so we're looking at the same size sign overall structure that we had, and if in the future we have a 45 square foot sign that you're allowing, are we allowing a 45 square foot message area as determined by the sign code of how you draw a box around any message area, which includes the background that message area is in? Because it puts to question, it doesn't resolve the original question of, right now, we're doing a whole structure, including it as the sign, but we're not defining it as what the sign message area is. So, are we?
I think, my understanding is that the sign cannot exceed 45 square feet. Is that correct, staff?
That is correct, Chair
That is
and Board. And I
correct?
would just quickly read here what the sign
So
face.
I don't think that matters, like how big the message is. You can use up all that space, or you can be artful and take up a small area. So I think it's just the sign.
But that doesn't, it's just not consistent with how your code reads. So I'm fine with that if we're going to call it a 45 square foot sign, but by your definition, the square footage relates to the sign message area, not to the structure of the sign,
Matt?
and the structure
Okay,
isn't supposed to be
I'm gonna
included.
defer to
Yeah,
Matt there.
and, you know, we could.
And I'm not trying to get back to that, but it's
Right.
a definition.
I think I would defer to staff on this, and if this is the way they've interpreted it, I mean, they look at a lot of signs, so,
And-
you know, if you want to have further discussion with them on that, you know, that's certainly your prerogative, but we're not gonna look at that and give you an absolute interpretation of that, you know, this evening. At least I don't intend to.
Okay. How big is your sign that you're proposing?
The
sign, not-
overall
not the
sign
message.
is, if you go to the top of the sign, just like the other top of the sign is 6 feet,
Yeah,
and it's 7 foot 10, almost 8 foot wide. So you're really 6 by 8
okay.
is the,
And you've got a curve to it.
right, so you're taking that out. and
You're
it's-
within the 45.
We are absolutely there,
Then
and I appreciate
I
that
don't
we're
think we
doing
need to
this.
discuss this anymore.
That's fine, I just,
So, you know, and
wanna
if
make
it
sure-
turns out in the future that's inadequate, like Matt said, come back to us.
Okay.
But I think it, you know, right now your proposal looks good.
Yes.
Thank
I
you.
think it's an attractive sign.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval to the city council for the comprehensive sign plan for Maple Pond Homes at 1854 B Road North with the following conditions. Did I get that right? It goes to the city council, right? No, we're
Your
making
decision
will be
approval here?
final.
Okay. So approval by the CDRB for this application. According to the conditions that are outlined in the staff report.
Okay,
A second.
we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Sounds like it's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've navigated through the sign process.
Maybe.
thank you. 36 years doing the sign process.
All right.
Not a newbie.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Don't forget to sign in, please. Okay. Usually it's right up on the podium, but yeah, maybe it's not this time. It was not.
I think they just get the transcript from.
Do we really need them to sign in, or it's already on, you know, the? Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Let's not complicate things. We will move on now to old business. Anything from staff or board?
Nothing.
Okay, visitor presentations, I think we heard it. Board presentations, anything? Staff presentations, anything else?
Staff does not
And,
have any
well,
presentation.
That leaves us with adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion?
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. That sounds unanimous. Congratulations, everyone, we're done.